Welcome all. Today in this video we are going to discuss the portocable anastomosis. This is in continuation of the previous video on the hepatic portal vein. Myself Dr. Ankit Khandelwal, MBBS and MS in Anatomy, and this is my YouTube channel Anatomy Explained. If you have not yet subscribed, consider subscribing to this channel because in this channel we try to discuss the important concepts of the human anatomy. So let us move to the topic of the day, that is our portocable anastomosis. Portocable anastomosis. So what does it mean? It means that there is anastomosis, that is a junction between two group of vessels. One is a portal group of vessels over here, which is actually referring to our hepatic portal system. And this cable system is the one which is also known as a systemic system. So you can also use the word portosystemic anastomosis or portocable anastomosis. Cable is actually referring to SVCs or IVCs, so that is the systemic part. So this is our portocable anastomosis. Now what does it mean? It means that supposedly we quickly revise that this, imagine this is the heart over here. The heart is pumping the blood through the ascending aorta, then we have the arch of aorta, and the arch of aorta forms the descending thoracic aorta, and finally you have this whole the descending abdominal aorta, and all this will give out the various branches will supply all the parts of the body. So normally what happens that this all of these vessels they will supply, and at the tissue level they form a system which is known as capillary. At the capillary level the diffusion occurs, and again from there you have this venous channel that will be draining back again the blood into the heart via the IVCs, and from the upper part of the body via the SVCs. So this is your SVC over here, that is IVC over here, and this would be a few branches which will be going to the head and neck and the upper limb, and subsequently another capillary level at the upper part. So this is a normal systemic circulation. Now what happens is that from this part, that is from the abdominal aorta, few vessels which will go to the gut part, which are actually for the foregut, midgut and hindgut part. So they will supply the major gut part where the digestion is taking place. So again they will form a system over here, the arterial system, and those will form again the capillary system around the tissue of the gut. So that is your capillary system over here. Now from this capillary system, when the blood is starting to go back, it does not go back directly into SVC or IVC. It starts to go back into a vein which is known as your portal vein. And over here, this as it is going to the liver, we call it as a hepatic portal vein. And here you can show this as an organ, and this, imagine this to be the liver over here. Okay, so inside this liver what happens is that this hepatic portal vein, which took off all the blood which was actually absorbed from the gut. So the gut, we have all the food ingredients that we eat, or any pharmaceutical drugs or any toxins which we are taking unknowingly or knowingly, all that is absorbed in this gut part, because that capillary system is in the gut part, and all that nutrients or toxins or pharmaceutical drugs, they are taken up by the hepatic portal vein into the liver, and here in the liver they divide into various sinusoids, and these sinusoids will again combine and they will form three set of veins, hepatic veins, the right, left and the middle hepatic vein. And these hepatic veins, now that is one which is going to drain into the inferior vena cava. So ultimately, because the heart is not receiving any portal vein directly, therefore ultimately the blood which is in the portal vein gets emptied into the IVC through the hepatic vein. Now why the blood is going to the liver? It is very simple, that all the metabolism of the carbohydrates, the proteins, the toxins that occur in the liver, that is one of the important function. It is not just the gut, but also remember one more organ over here, that is your spleen. So it is not just the gut, it is the spleen plus the gut part. From there all the blood which is being taken by the portal vein, because the spleen via sequestration of the old RBCs, so bile, function of the liver, formation of the bile. So that is also, so it is gut plus spleen, that blood is taken up via the hepatic portal vein into the liver. Metabolism occurring over here, the bile is being formed over here, then the hepatic vein, it drains the blood back into the inferior vena cava. So these are your two set of systems working on. Number one, this is your systemic circulation, the normal circulation which is going throughout the body, and number two is this portal circulation, which is mainly concerned with the gut and the spleen. So this is your portal and the systemic circulation. Now what occurs over here, one important thing which we need to understand over here, that as this whole gut part is being, this capillary around the gut, it is absorbing all the nutrients from the gut mucosa and all, so it will have a lot of tributaries over here, the small veins over here, and same way as this we have shown this capillary level of the systemic circulation, it will be also having a lot of tributaries. Now at various places of the body, at various places of the body, these two, that is the portal circulation and the systemic circulation, their tributaries are going to interact with each other, and that is what is our portocaval anastomosis. Portocaval anastomosis. Okay, so I repeat again, portal system is for the gut part plus spleen part, but it will be having a lot of small tributaries. Those tributaries are going to interact at few areas of our body with the tributaries of the systemic circulation. That is our portocaval anastomosis. Normally there is anastomosis, but it is not dilated over there. The blood is going in the relevant direction, but when there are problems in the liver, in the case of portal hypertension, then those anastomosis, they become clinically important. So to understand this, again we need to understand one more thing about the portal vein. So let us try to understand what the portal vein. So we said the portal vein is concerned with the gut and the spleen. So imagine this is your superior mesenteric vein, midgut, that is your inferior mesenteric vein, hindgut, and that is representing the splenic vein, that is a part of the celiac tongue. So this splenic vein over here, this IMV over here, the superior mesenteric bone over here, these are going to combine and they are going to form our what? This is a portal vein. Now this portal vein is going towards the liver. It divides into right and left branches just before it enters the liver at the porta hepatis. So the direction of blood is this over here. Direction of blood is in this direction. Now what we have to understand is that it is the portal circulation is right at the center of our body. Okay, and it is actually covered everywhere, that is on the outside body wall, by the systemic circulation. So it is covered outside by our systemic circulation. What does it mean? It means that what are the extremes of it? Extremes meaning by it starts from where? The foregut part starts from the lower end of the esophagus. So we can say the lower end of esophagus. Here the portal circulation is starting. Where it is going to end? Where the hindgut is going to end? That is your upper, or you can say the middle of the rectum part. Okay, so these are the two extremes. So obviously at the two extremes of the portal circulation, you will have some tributaries, you will have some anastomosis with the systemic vein. Okay, and this is the central part, so it is also being surrounded by the systemic. So you have the abdominal wall, both at the front, that is the anterior part, and as well as the behind, that is the posterior part. So at all of these places, these are the limits of the portal circulation. So at the limits of the portal circulation, you will have the systemic circulation, and these limits are telling you that at these areas you will have portocaval anastomosis, which are normal. Now consider over here, if I draw, like say this dark blue color, this is supposedly part of the systemic veins, so blood is going in this direction. Suppose it is going to the upward into the IVC. Now suppose I show you with this lighter color, these are your portal vein tributaries. Now they are going where? They are going to the portal vein. So blood is going in this direction normally. That will what will happen normally. So ultimately just try to imagine that this is our thick portal vein over here. All these are draining over here. Now by chance, due to any circumstances, it could be any the liver cirrhosis, any cancer in the liver, any this portal vein thrombosis, Budd-Chiari syndrome, there are multiple causes. Anything which is leading to obstruction of this portal vein. So whatever cause will lead to obstruction of this portal vein, the blood which was initially going in this direction, now it won't go in this direction. So obviously there will be increase in the pressure of the portal vein. Now when there is increase in the pressure of the portal vein, then obviously at all its tributaries the pressure will increase. So now the direction of the blood flow will be reversed. Now various causes. One is the portal vein do not have walls, and the small walls which are there in the portal vein tributaries, they start to become incompetent because they give away with the increasing pressure which is coming behind. So in this way the blood will start to flow in the opposite direction, and then this anastomosis, it starts to enlarge, it starts to dilate up, because the blood has to go from here to here. Blood has to go from portals to systemic circulation. This anastomosis which is there, but it is not it is not programmed to handle so much of blood. So suddenly when so much of blood starts to come on it, then it starts to dilate, and when the veins they start to dilate, then a small irritation over there, a small a small friction over there could rupture their walls, because already the walls are thin, and if they dilate, then obviously they are more prone to damage. Now as they are more prone to damage, and if they rupture, obviously bleeding is going to happen. So that we have to understand that what are the the limits, what are the limits where you have this whole junction of the portal and the systemic circulation. So for that, again, try to understand this last point, that you have to imagine that from the lower end of esophagus the whole thing started, the portal circulation started, it went to the stomach, from stomach it went to the small intestine, it also included in that part the pancreas, it also included the spleen, it also included the part of the liver, ultimately it will go back. From there it went to the large intestine, in the large intestine up, you can say in the middle of the rectum, part, okay, somewhere in the middle of the rectum part. So this is whole your tributaries or the area which is covered by the portal circulation. So outside this you can easily imagine, here you will have the portal anastomosis, here you will have the portal anastomosis at the two ends. Outside into the abdominal walls you will have the portal anastomosis, both in front as well as on the retroperitoneal side. So these are your few sides of the portocaval anastomosis. Normally they are there, but now as I told you that when there will be some obstruction to the portal vein flow, the retrograde pressure is going to start. So now they become clinically important, and then this now what we are going to understand about these areas, the sites of portocaval anastomosis. So this is the lower end of esophagus. Here when it becomes clinically important, we call it as esophageal varices or esophageal varix. In the lower end of or the middle of the rectum, we call it as anorectal varices, or we simply can call it as hemorrhoids. Okay, in the entry abdominal wall, when the portocaval anastomosis becomes dilate, we call it caput medusae, because it shapes like a medusae head. And this is the last one, that is the most least clinical important one, that is actually and on the retroperitoneal. So there are few dilated retroperitoneal veins. This is also clinically important, but not as much as the other three are involved. So when these retroperitoneal veins are dilated, you have to understand that if you are doing any procedure on the retroperitoneal side, or you are doing any intervention, or you are doing any surgery, you just keep in mind so that there could be massive bleeding in that part. That is the only clinically important part. So now as you understood the tributaries of the portal circulation, the systemic circulation, where they are anastomosing, and what will happen when the pressure increases. Now let us go one by one. What will happen in this esophageal varices? What are the different veins which are involved over here? So start with the esophageal varices. So let us draw a lower end of esophagus over here, and this will be lesser curvature, that would be a fundus part, and the greater curvature. Now as we have already done it in the hepatic portal anatomy, lower end of esophagus, there are a lot of esophageal veins over here, which are actually tributaries of the left gastric vein. These are your esophageal veins, and this left gastric vein drains into the trunk of portal vein. Normally it drains into the trunk of portal vein. Okay, now this is the lower end of esophagus. Now the upper end of esophagus, it is also having esophageal veins, but those are going into the azygous system. First they normally go into the hemiazygous because it is on the left side, then from hemiazygous they ultimately go into the zygous one, and that is going into SVC. So you can see SVC and the portal vein, portocaval anastomosis. So this is the upper area of the portocaval anastomosis. Okay, now again this portal vein, imagine it is being obstructed over here due to whatever cause it is. Normally it is due to liver cirrhosis. The pressure will build up over here, and therefore now the venous plexus will start to dilate. Now what happens with this esophageal mucosa, gut part, histology is also important. So you have this whole mucosa, or the veins in the mucosa, they are being actually drained into the submucosal venous plexus. Okay, the submucosal venous plexus is going into more deeper, that is your intrinsic venous plexus, and that intrinsic venous plexus is going into the periesophageal veins. Okay, now when these submucosal venous plexus, they are dilated, this intrinsic venous plexus, it will dilate. These are basically the submucosal venous and the intrinsic venous. Most important, the submucosal venous plexus, which is actually clinically important. Now it is said when there is a chronic increase in the portal venous pressure more than 15 millimeter of mercury, then these start to become clinically important. First of all, when there is small bleeding over here, in the initial stages, when there is small bleeding over here, it is small amount of bleeding, it will be only ingested inside. So normally patient, if you ask them the history, they will say okay, some dark stools are present from the past few days, I'm seeing more of a darker colored stools. That will give you a hint. Now, and that has been not been taken care of, or the patient is not that much aware, then when large number of these mucosal venous plexus are ruptured, then there's a lot of hemorrhage, and the person starts to vomit out blood, because it is like a foreign liquid to the lumen of the gut, because gut is not normally exposed to the blood, so hematomasis will occur. So therefore this is one of the most clinically relevant areas, that is known as esophageal varices. That is known as our esophageal varices. Here is a figure to show you the esophageal varices, how it appears like. Endoscopically it appears like that. You can see a few pockets over here. Okay, so normally it is not like this, but you can see the dilated veins over here, the submucosal venous plexus. Okay, now as we have seen this, now let us move to the other part, the other examples. And the other example was going to the anterior abdominal wall. So you have to again remember that this was our portal vein, which was having the two branches, the right and left portal vein. And imagine that this was our, say, the anterior abdominal wall over here, and when it was the placenta situated, so in the embryonic life, from this placenta there was a left umbilical vein. That left umbilical vein took the blood inside the embryo that was carrying the only oxygenated blood, and it directly communicated with the left branch of portal vein. This was our left umbilical vein. Now after the birth, when this cord has been clamped and it has been cut, this left umbilical vein is closed, and this becomes in adults as your ligamentum teres hepatis. Normally in half of the individuals it is closed, in half of the individuals it is said to be obliterated. What does it mean? It means that closed means that this lumen is there, but it is not carrying anything. So suppose this is the normal left umbilical vein. After it is closed, it will be somewhat like this, that lumen will be there but nothing is inside it. And obliterated means it is being obliterated like a regular ligament. So in most of the individuals it is closed. So what does it mean again? It means again that if there is any obstruction in this portal circulation, or this cirrhosis of the liver or Budd-Chiari syndrome, then obviously the pressure rises over here, then this closed ligamentum teres will open up, and then the blood will flow in this direction. And outside the anterior abdominal wall, we have this this superficial veins of the anterior abdominal wall, particularly our epigastric veins, the superior and the inferior epigastric veins, they are present over there. So there will be like this anastomosis between the ligamentum teres hepatis, the opened up ligamentum teres hepatis, and there are also a few veins said to be around it, which is known as the periumbilical veins. So there are some of the periumbilical veins which are around the ligamentum teres hepatis. Okay, so normally around the umbilicus there is anastomosis present, but it is not functionally relevant. But in case of portal hypotension, this may become functionally relevant, as they are on the anterior abdominal wall, and as the veins will dilate, so that you will see as the veins which are surrounding the umbilicus, that looks like the caput medusae, and the figure is over here somewhat. You can see over here then why we are calling it as the caput medusae. So you can see around the umbilicus this one is representing. Okay, so one is this portal vein tributary, and this is your systemic. So this is your systemic vein, and that is your portal tributary. Now moving from here, if we go to the third part, clinically important third part, it is around the rectum. So what is happening around the rectum? If we imagine that this is our rectum ampulla, and lower anal canal. Now this rectum and this lower part of rectum, so the upper part of rectum has been drained, is part of the hindgut, so it has been drained by the superior rectal vein. Superior rectal vein goes into the inferior mesenteric vein, that will finally drain normally into the splenic vein, that forms the portal vein. Fine. Now this middle and the lower part of the rectum has an inferior rectal vein. It has always an inferior rectal vein on both the sides. Okay. Now these inferior rectal veins, they are draining into the internal pudendal vein. Okay, and these internal pudendal vein are going to the internal iliac vein. Fine. Internal iliac vein is going to the common iliac vein, that is actually forming the IVC at the level of around L5 on both the sides. In around 40 to 50% of cases, we also see a middle rectal vein. middle rectal vein, again that is draining itself into the internal iliac, same route. So therefore this becomes what? This becomes our portocaval anastomosis area. Now with the gravity also, when there is obstruction in this portal vein, the blood will be start to flowing in this direction. As the blood will flow in this direction, there will be dilatation of the venous plexus around the mucosas and some mucosa of the rectum. That is what is known as your hemorrhoids. Now there is various classification of hemorrhoids like internal and external hemorrhoids. That is a different thing altogether. But just over here, the portal hypertension or portal vein obstruction could lead to hemorrhoids, because upper part is going into the portal circulation, lower part, middle part going into the systemic circulation. So that would be a picture showing you the location of the hemorrhoids. That is what is seen. Okay, so these are the three parts. The fourth part I already told you initially also, that there, as if you recall again the portal circulation, what were the tributaries? Portal circulation was also getting the veins from the pancreas, so it was having the pancreatic veins, and pancreas is what? It is retroperitoneal structure. Okay, and what are other retroperitoneal structures? Other retroperitoneal structures, we have the kidneys. Okay, we have the posterior abdominal wall, that is a totally retroperitoneal structure, and all these are having the veins. We have this whole lumbar group of veins. Okay, so these are pancreatic veins, even few of the splenic veins. And when we talk of the gut, then which part of the gut is retroperitoneal? You have the duodenum, you have the ascending descending colon. So not just this pancreas and all, but even those flexures of the colon, where the hepatic and the splenic flexure, where the ascending and descending, they are joined by the transverse colon, all this flexure of the colon. At those areas, the veins which are draining these in portal tributaries, they actually try to interact with, or the anastomosis with these veins. These are actually your systemic veins. These are going to the systemic veins. Again, you have this portal anastomosis. Now when there is a portal vein obstruction, again you have this retroperitoneal veins which are dilated. Which have become dilated. So normally they don't pose much of a problem. But if the surgeon is unaware on if you are doing any procedures in the retroperitoneal area, then there could be some bleeding if you don't notice this point, that the patient is a case of cirrhosis or a case of portal hypertension. So you have to learn that also. It is also important, retroperitoneal areas. Apart from this retroperitoneal area, we did a lecture on the if you remember, the peritoneal ligaments of liver. So if you look at the liver, there is a area in the posterior part of the liver which is known as the Bayer area. So this over here, if I just mark it out, this was our falciform ligament, the superior layer. It went behind, and behind, that is posterior surface, this was the area that was the Bayer area of liver. So again, this veins in the Bayer area of the liver, if we look at the liver from the posterior, and also that would be, I guess, more comforting for you to understand. This was our superior layer of coronary ligament, then this was the right triangular ligament, this was the inferior layer, and that enclosed your IVC over here. Okay, so this was our Bayer area of the liver, okay, from the posterior aspect. Obviously the veins over here, the liver whole, this portal vein is actually inside the liver only, all its sinusoids are inside the liver only, and here what you see is the IVC, and this Bayer area, you don't have any peritoneum over here. So this is also one of the areas, because superior, it will be entering into the thoracic cavity, because superior it has the diaphragm, then it has thoracic cavity, so you have the whole azygous system over here. At this level, you have the lumbar veins, and the intercostal veins would also be around here only. So this area also again is an important area of the portocaval anastomosis. So these are the various areas of portocaval anastomosis. Understand which area are being drained by the portal circulation. So at those extremes everywhere, you have portocaval anastomosis, because blood from the portal vein directly does not go into the heart, it goes via the IVC. So you have some anastomosis. Now after understanding all these anastomosis, we have a few procedures also. What do we do? So normally the most clinically important over here are the esophageal varices, because of the hematomasses. The patient will come to you, like he and or she and all the patient's relatives, they will be very scared and frightened, because blood is coming out of the mouth, hematomasses is happening. So the mainstay of the treatment are the You start the drugs like this vasopressin and the octreotide. The drugs they can't control, then go for the endoscopies. In the endoscopy we go for the sclerotherapy, we also go for the bending pattern. But around 1988 a procedure came after these are not working, and that procedure is known as TIPSS, that is the TIPS. Now what is this TIPS over here? TIPS, you have to understand, a very important procedure came around 1988. T stands for transjugular. I stands for intrahepatic, so you can understand each word is having its name. P stands for portosystemic. First S stands for stent, and S stands for shunt. So it stands for this transjugular, okay, transjugular, intrahepatic, portosystemic, stent, shunt. Now what does it mean? You have to enter via the jugular veins, you have to reach the liver. Inside the liver you have to search for the portal and systemic circulation, and you have to place a stent over where the shunt between the portal system circulation. So that is your TIPS. Now how to understand it? You have to understand that this, imagine this was our heart over here, okay. Again, the anatomy of the heart has been covered. The link will be there in the box, you can check out in the channel also. And you can see this was the SVC, formed by the two brachiocephalic veins, the right brachiocephalic and the left brachiocephalic. Both the brachiocephalics formed by the subclavian and the interjugular. So interjugular from the neck region, and this is your subclavian vein. And this is your IVC, and this chamber is your right atrium. Okay, this is your IVC over here, and here you have this organ, that is your liver, which is placed somewhat over here. Okay, now this IVC over here, if we try to make from here, these are the hepatic veins which are going inside the IVC, and all these are small sinusoids. They will all combine, and these would be your portal vein which is going inside. So that is our portal vein. So what is happening in this TIPS? What is happening in this TIPS is to enter via mainly the right interjugular, because that is in line. Now from the right interjugular, right brachiocephalic, superior vena cava, right atrium, IVC, hepatic veins. Now here you have to look for a shunt between a same size hepatic vein and a same size tributary of the portal vein, and then here you have to place a stent over here. Let us place a stent over here. Okay, that is your TIPS. And place a stent over here. You have to endoscopically, you can dilate it with the help of balloons. And also why it is done, because this portal hypertension is occurring, because portal vein pressure is increased. So how to relieve that pressure? If that pressure is continuously increasing, it is going back, and all these varices are opening up, that could lead to death. So to relieve the pressure, you relieve the pressure from this portal circulation to the system circulation. So you join the two similar sized veins from the portal circulation to the system circulation. But initially I told you there's two set of circulations. Now one set of circulation is having too much of pressure. Now what will this his or her brother do? Will try to share the pressures. Now if they are not able to share the pressures naturally, then unnaturally you can help. That is the role of a doctor, that you can help them share the pressure. Because if they are sharing the pressure, they're not supposed to, and they are not naturally meant, bleeding is occurring. So unnaturally, artificially, procedurally, we share this pressure via the process of TIPS. There are other processes also which we do. So this was, guys, just a brief idea of the whole portocular anastomosis, which areas, and a small part of its this applied part and this TIPS procedure. I hope you liked the video. If you like the video, then don't forget to press the like button, and if you have not yet thought of subscribing the channel, then do positively think of subscribing the channel. That is a Anatomy Explained. You can also find me on the Unacademy. I teach live in the Unacademy platform. In unacademy.com, go to the NEET PG category. You can search my name, Dr. Ankit Khandelwal, and then you can see some classes over there. There are some free classes which are available over there. There are some subscriptions which are available. If you want to go with the subscription, you can use this code Dr. Ankit 10. You can get a specific, the discounts over there. So that's all from my side. I hope you enjoyed it, and thank you for your time. Bye bye.